Hello, good morning. If you're here in the US, good afternoon or evening if you're outside of the US. Today's topic is going to be helping mental health professionals integrate expressive arts when they're working with challenging adolescents. And today I'm so excited because today is my first live stream to YouTube and LinkedIn. I have a private Facebook group on Facebook called Play Therapy and Expressive Arts. So I've been going live in there for almost a year now. And today I am on LinkedIn and YouTube as well. So if you are joining me today, I would love to see who's here. Go ahead and post your name, say hello, where you're from. If you're in Facebook, you will need to give Facebook permission. Otherwise, you show up as Facebook user and I don't know your name, which is fine as well. All righty, so go ahead and post in the comments if you're here, and let's get started for today. So today I want to talk about how to engage adolescents who are, let's just say, guarded, defensive, and maybe a little reluctant to engage with you in the change process. Their parents have brought them hoping you would help their child, and their child sits across the room from you in the therapy session, looking guarded and giving you all of the body language that there is absolutely no way they're going to talk to you. They don't want to be there. Why are they here? And they're not really happy about it. So I have found that when I love using expressive arts with adolescents, as you can see from my background here. I have a lot of a lot of the sand tray figures in the background here. So just a little bit about me. I'm Kathy Spooner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a registered play therapist supervisor here in the United States. I have almost 30 years experience working with children, adolescents, and families. And my favorite modality to use has been play therapy and expressive arts. I was first introduced to it back in the 80s, so it has been a while. So anyway, getting started. You have your clients sitting across from you. What do you do? And if you're joining me, I'd love to hear your experience of what's helped you to engage clients, more of the reluctant teenagers in the change process. So go ahead and post that in the comments, and let's hear what you guys are doing as well. First and foremost, I like to use a neuroscience and attachment lens. I'm kind of nerdy that way, to think about the treatment process, also how to provide it. So how to establish that therapeutic rapport. And if we tap into the wisdom of Daniel Siegel and Stephen Porges, so the resonance circuits and neuroception, if we're using neuroception, the resonance circuits, really what we're doing is we are, what Daniel Siegel would say, tapping in mind to mind. We are resonating one mind to another mind. And when we're able to do that, we can really tune in to our clients being fully present in the moment. And when we're working with guarded adolescents, that their neuroception circuits are engaged. So what that means is they're not feeling safe, and they're not going to be able to engage and fully participate in the change process with you until those neuroception circuits are disengaged and they can engage their social engagement system, which also, when you're talking about play therapy and expressive arts, though they can't engage in that playful process with you until their social engagement system is engaged, which means they have to feel safe in the session. And so first and foremost, sometimes with these clients, because their danger circuits are engaged, I find that it's really important to go slow, to really slow it down, focus on helping them to feel safe and secure in the session, and really tune in to what's going on with them and what they need, especially if you're working. Sorry, I got a tickle. I got to have some coffee right now in my throat. If you're working with adolescents who are really anxious or even have a history of trauma, they really, really need to feel safe first. So using that attachment lens to tap into your resonance circuits to tune in and get a sense of what's going on with your clients, as well as paying attention to those neuroception circuits and those cues of safety that you need to give your client. So how do we give those cues of safety? That's the big question. I like to use what I call the B5 framework. It's because to me, a framework is so helpful to help guide me through the treatment process. So I thought, well, what do I need? A good framework is like my map, helps me figure out how to navigate through the process. So if I'm trying to navigate how to establish strong therapeutic rapport and help me through the treatment process, maintaining that rapport and doing that clinical decision-making process, I really need to tap in and use the wisdom of neuroscience. So I created the B5 framework, which essentially is being fully present in the moment so you can tap into those neuroception circuits. The resonance circuits, and help your client disconnect those neuroception. Also, be authentic, be yourself. Teenagers, especially, kids know when you're faking it. They know when you're not genuine. They know if you genuinely care about being there or you don't care about being there. I worked in residential treatment for a while recently, and I can't tell you how many times I heard the teenagers say to me, "Oh, you're just doing this because you get paid." And I would laugh and say, if you knew how much I got paid to deal with what I have to deal with, you would not say that. I am here because I care about you. That is why I'm here. And so it took a while. Eventually they would come around. But be authentic. Don't try to be somebody you're not. I'm nerdy. I have owned that. I tell my kids, they're young adults now, I tell my kids I make nerdy cool. And then they laugh and roll their eyes and say, "No, Mom, you're not cool." So, but that's who I am. Part of the treatment process is how do you show up in the session as your authentic self. So we have to do that within professional boundaries. We still have to be our authentic self in the session. So be authentic, be present, be fully aware of what's going on and accepting and curious, all of these things to create that safe environment for your client. So if you're interested in the B5 framework PDF, I did put a link to that in the description. So you can feel free to click on that and get a copy of the B5 framework. If you don't already have that, some of you already have that. So also expressive arts. I love using expressive arts with adolescents. I find that it is a really powerful tool to help bypass some of that guardedness, also bypass some of the, let's call it the left brain lockdown, that logical part of our brain that tries to make sense of things and uses logic and language. Sometimes we can't access that. To do that deeper level work, we need to access through right brain, more creative parts of our brain. And to me, that's where expressive arts come in, is we can give expression to what we don't have language to express. I can't tell you how many times, even adults that I have worked with, and I may ask them, well, how do you feel about that? and they haven't had that practice yet of really tapping into their bodies and what's going on with them to get a sense of, how am I feeling? I have no idea how I'm feeling. I don't know how I feel about that. I have no idea. They would look at me and say, teenagers are the same way. Adults are that way. So if we can use symbolic representation through sand tray, through art, I love using poetry. And I with adolescents and adults. I make adults do this too, for the just for the record, and music. And I don't do a lot of movement or dance, but that's another way. Drama. Those are all avenues of expressive arts that give expression to what can't necessarily be expressed in that moment. It's a way to tap into and help get to those parts of what's going on with our clients, to help them navigate through that, to work through that, to really engage in the healing process. So I'm curious, if you are watching, are there expressive arts activities that you have found to be really helpful with your adolescent clients? Like, do you have a favorite directive activity? Do you have a favorite expressive arts modality that you like to use? Post that in comments and let's see what works for you guys. Here's the thing about expressive arts, especially in the beginning, and when I'm building that rapport, I'm helping them to feel safe and secure. Because when we're using expressive arts, one of the things we want to do, some of you may have heard this before, we're creating that free and protected space, and we hold that for our clients, that gives them permission and invites them in to using these expressive arts modality to tap into those right brain areas to help them express what's going on with themselves. So when I'm first getting started and I'm building rapport, I like to use expressive arts activities that are really, let's say, non-confrontational, or really kind of open, not challenging at all. So I may do some, you can see all my sand figures in the background. Hello there. Oh, painting. Oh, yes, I love that. Here we go. We have painting masks to express feelings. The outside of the mask is what people see. The other side of what, yes, I love that. I had a therapist friend. I don't know if you do this, but she had some kind of it was like a gauze, and it had like plaster of Paris. She would do this with her adult clients, and she would put it on their face and kind of mold it to their face, and then would take it off and let it dry. And then that's what she would do with the mask. I thought that was so cool. We can buy the pre-made masks. Those get a little pricey though, but they are nice to use. And also, here's one thing that I've done. Here was my girlfriend's guide to a cheaper version of that. Is I would do the paper mache. So you get yes, that is a great idea. Isn't that? I love that she did that. Put it right on their face. So here's like a cheaper version to do it if you want another idea. So I would do the paper mache. So you tear up strips of newspaper or something like that. And you could do glue and water and make that paste, or you can make another kind of paper mache paste. And then I would blow up a balloon and make it big enough for like a head. And then and I did do this with children too, children and adolescents. And then we would paper mache the balloon, the whole thing. So it was fully paper mache. And then about a week it would dry. They'd come back. I see children and adolescents on a weekly basis. They would come back. I'd kind of pop the balloon. We'd cut that in half. And then you had a mask. You had actually 2 masks. So that was kind of a less expensive way of doing the masks that got them involved in the mask making process as well. And then you can have other things like egg cartons they can use to cut up and make eyes, or somehow, plaster, use some of that paper mache to put some more of that on the balloon mask to create a little depth and texture to it. So I love using masks. And I would say that's probably a little bit more of the middle part of treatment when you've got them engaged. And one of the things that I found in helping to get them established is I'll do things like I may do a directive if you have sand tray figures. You can see I have a sand figure addiction. I'm on the wagon right now. I'm not allowed to buy any more sand figures. Is tell them, you can give them directive, create your ideal world. A lot of times if I'm working with kids and adolescents who have a lot of anxiety or they have a trauma history, I'll say use the figure or figures to create a safe world, your ideal world, your safe world. Sometimes I'll give kids the option. When I say kids, I mean children and adolescents. I'll give them the option of either drawing it or using the sand tray to do that. It's kind of a non-intrusive way. It's more positive focused, helps to create a sense of trust, also helps them to introduce them a little bit to the this modality because they're a little reluctant. A lot of kids are in school, so they're used to being graded. Am I going to do this the right way or not the right way? So it may take them a session or two to get used to not being graded. Nobody's judging. However you do it is fine. You can't do this wrong. It'll be just the way it needs to be. So I'd say a lot of that in the beginning to help them really engage and use them, the art modalities, without feeling judged or critical. So another thing that I'll do, many of you, I like the coloring books are really popular now. Or you can go online and get some free pre-printed mandalas. You can buy books of mandalas. I really like to use the pre-printed mandalas early on because if I'm establishing that trust, because it's really non-intrusive, it's more mindfulness based. They're fully present. A lot of times where I just have them do it in the session, we're quiet. I may put on some of the kind of meditative music because I like that kind of music. And here's an example. To me, this shows the power of this, even though it's so simple. I worked in a residential treatment facility, and I had a group of adolescent males that I was working with, and we did group every day. They were not feeling safe. They would disrupt, they would divert. I remember the first couple of times I was doing the group, I think I said to my boss, this is a disaster. So I thought, you know what? They're not feeling safe. They're not going to engage in the process until they feel safe. So I'm telling you, for like a week, all we did was color mandalas. And by the end of the week, they were asking for more mandalas. They were asking for some to use when they went back to their rooms. They were using it. And then from there, we could start to get into some of those more deeper level issues that were going on for them. So I love using the mandalas, the pre-printed ones. I even give those for homework to help with emotion regulation, self-soothing, and things like that. So, and then finally, I would say, and for me, this is a really important part of the treatment process, especially when working with challenging adolescents, is I really think as mental health professionals, we need to conceptualize them with the clinical conceptualization, case conceptualization. We need to look at them within context. And if we're looking at them within context, then we're thinking about their family systems, we're thinking about those relationship patterns, we're thinking about school. How is school going for them? What are they struggling with at school? How triggering is school? What is triggering them at school? And also their social circles. What kind of friends are they hanging out with? Are they hanging out with healthy kids? Or are they geared more towards toxic peers, and how is that influencing them? I really think that we need to, as mental health professionals, engage the family. And that may take some time. And I do think that we need to do family therapy session. I'm a huge family therapy person. Oh, here's another idea. Yes, the balloon and paper mache process sounds great. And using mandalas is very interesting. Yes, I love, and you're a Facebook, LinkedIn user. So yes, thank you, LinkedIn user. Yeah, I love using masks. And I think I'm saying Lysandria. I hope I pronounced your name right. Yes, that's a great idea about the mask. And the mandalas. Also, if you're using mandalas, you can use the, I don't know if you're familiar with to give them a big circle. I actually went into the Word documents, and you could go into the shapes, and I created a Word document with a big old circle on it. And then that way I could just print those out as needed. Like, I made that circle as big as I could make it on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But that's a way, then you can just hand it to them. It's like a worksheet. I hate worksheets, but that one I don't mind. I also give that one, especially teenagers, I may give them a few blank ones and have them keep a mandala journal. So instead of like writing, I'll have them use the mandala and keep a journal that way. So it's more pictures and art instead of words. They can add words to it, and I find that helpful as well. And that's a great journaling idea. So the way that if you're not familiar with using mandalas, one of the ways you can introduce mandalas to your clients, and this one is an early on one you can use as well. So like here would be an example. If I'm early in the treatment process and I want to provide an expressive arts activity that's not too challenging, so I may say to them, so here's a mandala. So the way that I think about a mandala is, if I were to think about all of the emotions that I have inside of me and what those look like and what those feel like, if I were to take all of that from me and put it in this circle, what would that look like? What kind of shapes would it be? What kind of colors would it be? So if I could, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So what would that look like? And then I'll invite them to do that. That one, I usually have to encourage them. Nobody's judging it. However you do it is perfect. It's just the right way. You can't do this wrong. And if they really, really have hard time getting started, I'll give them an additional prompt of pick. So if they're using, I give them options: markers, colored pencils, crayons. I love using oil pastels, so I'll offer that. So I'll say to them, just pick a color. What color do you seem to be drawn to? Pick that color, pick it up, put it to the paper, and just see what happens. I promise you, you can't do this wrong. So for the ones that are having a harder time getting started, I've found that prompt to be really, really helpful. So just as a recap for today, establishing a strong therapeutic rapport can take time. If you have challenging clients, if they're guarded and defensive and reluctant, there's a reason. And the reason is they don't trust you. They don't trust the process. Being vulnerable means I need to feel safe. And that's essentially what we're asking our teenage clients to do. We're asking them to come in and be vulnerable. And they may not have had very good experiences with grown-ups. After all, from a kid's point of view, grown-ups rule the world. So we're inviting them in. We need to be respectful of where they are in that moment and their pacing. We need to really respect their pacing. I found so the B5 framework is neuroscience and attachment informed how to create that safe and secure therapeutic environment and maintain that and do your clinical decision making. So if you're interested in the B5 framework, it's a PDF, it's a free PDF. I put a link in the description so you can click on that and that'll take you over. You can download the PDF. Also, we need to make sure that when we're using expressive arts, we need to have it in that safe environment. So in the beginning, we want to give non-intrusive activities. It also, the expressive arts can help access some of those more right brain processing to help express what is difficult to express. And then finally, make sure you're including and conceptualizing your adolescent client within context. So their family, school, their social environment. And I really encourage including family members in the treatment process. My rule of thumb is, and I tell parents when I meet with them, I tell them on the phone before I even start meeting with them, my expectation is that you're going to be actively involved in the treatment process. Probably in the beginning, that means we're going to meet at least once a month, probably without your child. And then we'll figure out from there what makes the most sense. And I've set the expectation that they're going to be involved because I'm only a blip in their life, so to speak. I'll be there a very short time. I try to be a positive blip. And I'm only going to be there a short period of time. They're going to be with their family. Most likely they will be with family for the rest of their lives. So whatever I can do to support that and help children and parents connect so that kids can use their parent for support. If that's possible, it's not always possible. But when it is, I like to try and do that. So that is it for today. I'm excited to now be on LinkedIn and YouTube in addition to my Facebook group. If you are interested, like I said, you can go into the description. You can download that free PDF for the B5 framework. I'm also going to be doing an online training in June 14th. I'll be doing an online training. It's called Accessing the Therapeutic Powers of Play for Adolescents Using Expressive Modalities. So I'll be using neuroscience and attachment framework. We'll look at some of the neuroscience and attachment things and kind of frame that for how to use expressive arts. It's going to be highly experiential, lots of activities. I'll sprinkle in a little bit of archetypes and complexes for attachment archetypes to take a look at those. And then we'll be using different expressive modalities to help adolescents. So lots of activities, lots of experiential. If you're interested in that, that link is also in the description. So I will see you next week.